Hey, we're so happy you found us online. The message you're about to hear was recorded live at Grace Family Church. We're a community following the call to love God, love people, and make a difference. We meet at 4 locations around Durban and at graceonline.tv. Go ahead and share this message, or you can download it and listen to it in your car or at home later today. Wherever you are in the world, wherever you're listening from, thank you for connecting with us, and may you be encouraged by the message coming up next.
Hey everyone, the world is certainly changing, and it's not changing back to what it was. It's changing to something else that we don't quite know what it's going to become. Now, I used to think my daughter and son-in-law in London are just a flight away. Now I wonder when we will see them next. I used to enjoy the fresh air on a run and in the outdoors. Now I suck in the fibers of my own mask and smell my own breath. I used to show affection to family and friends by leaning in for a hug. Now I do the Corona Macarena, which is lean in, lean out, stick the right hand in, pull the right hand out, present the elbow. I don't know who I am anymore. I used to know how to help people through the initial stages of deep loss when a loved one dies. You arrange a memorial service, you gather people, you create space for people to remember and to give thanks for the one they love but can't see. You create a time when we commend the one we love into the hands of God in the presence of others we love. And God says, because I live, you shall live also. Now, which 50? Where? Masks, hand sanitizers. How do we get the sons and the daughters and mothers from the corners of the earth together in one place? During lockdown, I sat with daughters and a wife as they paid tribute to their beloved dad and husband. I sat with 2 sons, one in the US and one in Hillcrest, as they bid farewell to their mom. Neither was able to be present when she died. One was just 4 kilometers away. We're in the 2nd week of a series getting rid of the lockdown F.L.A.B, fear and loss and anger and blame. These things can stick to us and they can become us. And so today we talk about getting rid of lockdown loss. Now you can't really get rid of loss. The thing is lost. The only way to get rid of loss is to get it all back. And it's not going to happen like that. We don't get rid of loss, but we can deal with the loss. And I sense it's true that unless we deal with the loss, it will deal with us and it'll shape us. It can shape us for good, or it can break us for good. Friends, we're swimming in a sea of loss. Loss of life as we once knew it. We used to think one way, now it is different. Loss of life, bringing deep sadness, grief, and longing within us. In this sea of loss, there are individuals, each of us dealing with our own personal losses. Who might be in the room with us today as we talk together? People who have lost loved ones, virus or not, and the sadness is acute. People who have lost their livelihoods, jobs, businesses, dreams. People have lost marriages and relationships. I heard that in Wuhan, once they opened the city, the divorce rate spiked. There are those in the room with us who are busy losing and can't see a way forward. It's a loss of hope. In the room is you and me with our own stories. What are your stories? Now we must deal with the loss. We must name the grief. We must mourn together. And mourning is described as grief, that deep pain within us, going public. We remember Jesus saying, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." Blessed are those who take that deep pain within, sense of loss, and make it public. They will be comforted. We remember how Jesus publicly wept outside his friend's tomb, Lazarus' tomb. And the people say, "Look how he loved him." We remember how Jesus wept over Jerusalem, a city, a people who had chosen a different way of life that would cause and bring them deep sorrow. Jesus weeps. Mourning is grief, that which is inside, going public. Now, to help us deal with loss, we find the Israelites who for generations had been enslaved, but certainly well fed. Now they were free, but hungry and thirsty in the desert. We read all of this in the book of Exodus. Now, let me read. The rabble with them began to crave other food. And again the Israelites started wailing and said, "If only we had meat to eat. We remember how it used to be. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers, can you see they're on a roll? The melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna." And manna was what God had provided for them in their hunger. The manna was like coriander seed and looked like resin. But man, they were sick of it. They were longing for what used to be. They have forgotten the slavery and the hardship of that, but they remember the food. This sense of loss turns them into complainers. In a sense, becomes them. And they repeat offenders, Days in, God has just done an amazing thing. He had parted the Red Sea and rescued them from the pursuing Egyptian army. But they're without water. This is just a few days. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" 2 months in, they repeat complainers. 2 months in, having received water from God, they're without food. In the desert, the whole community grumbled, complained against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you, Moses, have brought us into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." They were saying, "You, Moses, and your God have brought us here to die." Repeat complainers. A little later, it's water again. And the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and even our livestock die of thirst?" What's happening here? The people are grieving the loss of a way of life, as we are. They were confronted with great hardship and pain, no doubt, as we are. Food and water are things to complain about, let's be clear. They're a basic necessity for life. They were being presented in this time with a choice. In a way, they were being prepared for what was to come, the land they were going to occupy. They were given a choice that would shape them or break them. In the face of great pain and need, would they trust or despair? Many would simply allow complaint to ooze into their minds, and they would not see the land of promise before them. In each of these encounters, water, food, and then water again, God provides. And in a sense, He whispers, "Will you trust me? Will you trust me? Will you trust me when you don't understand? Will you trust me when it doesn't look like there's a solution? Will you trust me?" In each of these encounters, will you trust me? In each successive encounter, how quickly they choose despair and complaint. And I remember my dad, who was diagnosed with cancer and for years had treatment and celebrated the tests which would declare him clean. And then it came back, inconceivably. And he would say to us, his children, "God can heal me in an instant. If He chooses not to, still I will trust him. This is a choice my father made. He died, but he died trusting. And I sense we're confronted with the same choice these days. Whatever our loss, each of us stands in our own pool of tears. My pain is my pain and yours is yours. It makes little sense to compare pain, and we need not diminish the heartache of another. Scars are scars. Whatever your loss, we're confronted with a choice: despair or trust. Now, how do we choose trust? TLC, I say. Not tender loving care, but talk, listen, and see. Dr. Luke writes to his friends in the Gospel of Luke, his friend, and includes the story, and there's surprisingly a lot of detail. It's the story of two who are walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus. It's 11.2 Ks or something like that. And I ran 10 kilometers, the Comrades Legends, race the Comrades Legends. I'm going to get a Comrades medal. I failed twice in that long race, but I did 10 Ks on this past Saturday. I also did one burpee. I was escaping some cyclists coming this way, stepped into a driveway, twisted my ankle, and fell on my face. How quickly things can change, you know. I was upright and fine a moment, and then fallen in front of some ladies who were coming this way. 12 Ks. It was a transformational journey. So let's walk together as we learn to choose trust in the face of loss. Let me read. Dr. Luke writes, "Now that same day, and it was Resurrection Sunday, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened." Friends, they were talking about everything that was happening. It was devastating stuff. Jesus was dead, and with him their hopes and dreams for a new way of life, a new politic, a new freedom. They were talking about everything. And the question I have is, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you not talking about as you walk along? Who are you talking to? Because my sense is, if we're to deal with loss, then we've got to talk. If we are to deal with loss and choose trust, then talk we must. We talk it out, or we act it out. We talk it out, or it sticks to us and affects our bodies, our health. And if you have no one to talk to, our Grace counseling ministry has gone online. And you just got to email counseling@grace.org.za, and you'll be connected with people who will hear your speak, your talk. The two to Emmaus, in devastating circumstances, were talking to each other about the things that were going on. Now, as they talked and discussed these things with each other, an amazing thing happens, really. Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, as Dr. Luke writes, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" Jesus asks. Find it amazing that as they talked, Jesus joined them, but they did not recognize him. As you name your pain, your loss, Jesus, who is with you, joins you in a particular way. It seems that where there is heartache and pain, Jesus joins. A question often asked is, where is God when it hurts and when it makes no sense? Well, he's where it hurts and he's where it makes no sense. He joins you there. It's the story of the cross. God made flesh, taking on our heartache, pain, and sadness. Notice what he does. He gets them to talk some more. What are you discussing? They're flabbergasted. Don't you know the things that have happened? Jesus is the center of those things, but he says, what things? He gets them to talk again, so they tell the story again. And we are drawn into their hearts. Here's how the doctor records it. About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. We had hoped. They had lost their hope. And what is more, it's the third day since all this took place. And in addition, some of the women amazed us. They went to the tomb early in the morning, but didn't find his body. They came and they told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions, our friends, went to the tomb. They found it just as the women had said, but they didn't see Jesus. They're talking to Jesus and they're not seeing him. We had hoped, they say. We had hoped. Friends, they had talked it out to each other, to Jesus, whom they didn't recognize. But now they must listen. TLC, they must listen. He said to them, "How foolish you are." And I've always wondered the tone of this. I don't think it was anger. I think it was invitation. How foolish you are. How slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, Jesus explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As these two listen to Jesus, I'm asking the question, who am I listening to? Who are you listening to? As we deal with the loss and pain, we can fill our minds with the complaints and stories of others, or we can listen to the voice of God. Jesus reminds them of Moses and the Exodus and the parting of the Red Sea and the way in which God sustained them through the desert, that land between, and led them into a promised land. The way in which the Jordan River piled up on one side and they walked through. In fact, at that point, Joshua, who was leading the people through, had been instructed, put stones one on top of the other, so that when your children asked what happened, you will remember. Jesus reminds them of Moses and the Exodus, of God and his provision. He's inviting them to remember and to choose trust. They must talk and they must listen. But sometimes it takes seeing. And as they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going further. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." And so he went in to stay with them. What a beautiful image. Stay with us. When he was at the table with them, he took bread. He gave thanks and he broke it. And he began to give it to them. And then their eyes were opened. They recognized him. They saw. And he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" Many would say that Jesus was recognized by the two by his wounds. As he broke the bread, they saw his wounds. They had talked. They had listened. Their hearts were burning within them, but they did not recognize God with them. And then they saw. They saw his wounds. God, the wounded one, was with them, wounded as they were. Pain spoke to pain, and they chose trust. They leapt up and returned to their friends to say, "We have seen the Lord." TLC. If we're to get rid of lockdown F.L.A.B, if we're to get rid of loss, we talk, we listen, and we see. In the presence of pain and loss, friends, I pray that you would choose trust. When things are impossible to understand, when things are impossible to see, and you despair, then choose trust. Invite Jesus into your heart and into your home. Let him break bread there with you. And friends, the host at the communion table, as we prepare to share communion is Jesus. He's the host. He makes the invitation. So as we share in communion together, may your hearts burn with God's love and with His presence. What are you talking about as you share this meal with Jesus? Will you listen for His voice and remember, for these are the very instructions of communion. Take, eat, take, drink, and remember. Remember the mighty acts of God. Listen. May His wounds speak to yours. And then would you see? For as Jesus breaks the bread, He says, "This is my body broken for you." There are wounds. So friends, you've prepared the elements of bread and wine, bread and water, whatever you found in your house. And we're going to share in communion, because Jesus, on the night in which He was betrayed, took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "Take and eat, and remember." Remember the mighty acts of God. And after supper, after they had talked together, talked and listened, Jesus takes the cup. He gives thanks to His Father, and He gives it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant. This is a new way of life. Take and drink, and be thankful." It's an invitation to talk, to listen, and to see. TLC. So just where you are in your homes, would you share this meal together with one another? And may your hearts burn. I'm going to pause for a while, and then I'll close in a time of prayer. But would you share in communion